174, defendants Lacey Rawlings and Daniel Rawlings. I'll note the appearance of Mr. Seuss, Chief Deputy from the Gila County Attorney's Office. Each of the defendants, Mr. Griffin on behalf of Daniel, Ms. Mahady on behalf of Lacey. Is Ms. Elledge, is she observing from the other room? Okay. Victims rest, Ms. Elledge is in the building. Is Ms. Johnston here? Or she'll be coming in a moment? Okay, and is Jay Rawlings here? Okay. I apologize for the limited seating. We're still under COVID protocols, and therefore we had to limit seating today. I'll note that we are streaming today's proceedings live on the court's YouTube channel. We're here for a mitigation hearing and sentencing. Before I hear from the attorneys, let me just review for the record and the attorneys what the court has reviewed prior to today's hearing. I've reviewed both of the indictments and the plea agreements that were entered. I've reviewed both of Ms. Jordan's pre-sentence reports, one for each defendant, that were dated January 14th of 2022. I've reviewed the addendum to each of those reports that was filed on January 18th that contained Ms. Elledge's impact statement. I've reviewed Ms. Mahady's January 21st sentencing memorandum regarding her clients, Mr. Griffin's January 24th sentencing memorandum regarding his clients. I'll note that in reviewing the pre-sentence reports, there were approximately 50 letters attached to Ms. Lacey Rawlings and approximately 100 letters attached to Daniel Rawlings. Many of the letters overlap between the two, but I have read each of those from both immediate family members, extended family members, community leaders, various acquaintances. Okay, and Mr. Seuss, I'm aware of your position from the pre-sentence report, but you have not filed a written sentencing memorandum?
No, I did not.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I did not miss it. Okay, with that, Mr. Seuss, I'll start with the state.
Yes, Judge. First, I'd like to start off with two of the victim representatives who wish to make statements to the court.
Okay, and you mentioned Ms. Johnston and I think Ms. Morey?
Correct.
Do you know who will be coming first? Okay, Ms. Johnston? Okay, so why don't we have Ms. Johnston come up?
Is the podium fine, or do you want to see it?
Wherever they're more comfortable. If we get them to the podium, there's whichever I'll ask.
Judge, her name is actually Lynn. This is the grandmother.
Okay, Lynn? Okay. Ma'am, if you could make your way up front, please be careful of all the various cords and things we have. Ma'am, my understanding is your name is Lynn, L-Y-N-N, Morey, M-O-R-E-Y?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. What would you like to tell me today?
Thank you for allowing our family to be here today. I am Lynn Morey, and I am Austin, Sawyer, and Lakin's grandma. When I said goodbye to those girls on the morning after Thanksgiving 2019, I never imagined in my wildest dreams that it would be the last time that I saw one of them. They'd all spent the night at my house after Thanksgiving. I felt so blessed to have them there that night. But since November 29th, 2019, Black Friday has taken on a whole new meaning for me. Thanksgiving has never been the same since. That feeling of dread lingers throughout the weekend, overshadowing everything our family does, despite our attempts to live through this, be grateful, and move on. The loss, the missing person, still hangs over us like a hot blanket. We all glance at each other as we pray before dinner, our tears welling up in our eyes, trying to be strong for one another. My son-in-law reaches over, squeezes my shoulders in an effort to comfort me. I think about that day every day, and I have nightmares about it. I shiver every time I think about how cold that water was, how scared those girls must have been, and how helpless the situation must have seemed for 5-year-olds and 7-year-olds. I prayed that first night before Austin was rescued or found that she would be rescued, perhaps holding on for dear life to a tree branch or stuck in debris, half frozen but alive. My husband didn't want me hanging on to those hopes, but I had to. I had to think of that in order to get through that night. I didn't give up hope until the next morning when her tiny little body had been found. That reality pounded me like a sledgehammer. I would never get to hold Austin again, never hear her crazy laugh, never see her running down the soccer field in her crazy socks. Tears come to my eyes every time I think about that next morning when Lakin and Sawyer were dropped off at my house. They still smelled like dirty water. They just sat on the couch and we huddled together. Their hair all matted, stinky, wearing donated clothes. It was dreadful hearing Lakin's account of the ordeal. She revealed how bad she felt because she just, as hard as she tried, couldn't hang on to Austin's hand when the water took her away. We all cried as I tried to explain to her that this wasn't her fault. No 7-year-old should ever have to feel responsible for something like that or hold that kind of guilt in her heart. As adults, we're all responsible for any children who are left in our care, whether it's for a couple hours, a weekend, or for their whole life. It's up to us to ensure safety and the well-being of children at all costs. Cutting corners when it comes to children's safety is a deal breaker. Because all children are our children, I'm asking this court to send an appropriate message to all adults. The message is that it's not okay for children to make life-altering choices when it comes to their safety. The message that it will not be tolerated for any adult, not even once, to ignore a pool without a fence, a car ride without a child restraint, a boat without proper life jackets on board, or a rain-swollen creek with a closed no crossing sign posted in front of it. This message needs to resonate throughout this entire state so that similar tragedies will not be repeated. Because children are God's gift to us and we have to take care of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Kayla, you've asked me to do something that I'm not sure I know how to do. If you could come up and assist me. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Morey. Do we have Ms. Johnston next?
She'll be right behind her, too.
You can either go there, ma'am, or here, whichever's more comfortable for you. Okay, and you're Miss Johnson, ma'am?
I am Lauren's sister, Miss Johnson's sister.
Okay, and what's your name?
Kristen Hendrum.
I'm sorry, what's the last name?
Hendrum,
And can you spell that for the record?
Henjum.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
November 29th, 2019, we lost Austin, but it was also the day I lost my sister. Not literally, just in that sort of helpless, excruciating way you watch someone you love fiercely crumble into a million pieces. And you know they will never be the same again. Just in that sort of way you watch an innocent bystander, their life get turned upside down by someone else's actions. She's my little sister and my best friend, and watching her die inside was the worst pain for me in all of this. I continue to watch her encounter pain in all of life's moments that should only bring joy. Listening of a field trip with Sawyer and not Austin. Throwing Sawyer a birthday party and knowing it should be Austin's day too. Her wedding day to a wonderful man with the new addition of his children there, and wishing she had all of hers there too. Having family photos taken that are beautiful, but not complete. Every happiness is painful, and it will always be. Or in the basic everyday moments that nobody sees. Like sitting next to a struggling mom of twins on a plane, and mom asks her for help. So she sits and holds a baby in her lap for the mom and secretly weeps. Tears rolling down her face, hidden under her mask. When Lauren was pregnant with Austin and her twin Sawyer, I was pregnant at the same time. We felt amazingly lucky to share pregnancies at almost identical times. We had our babies just weeks apart, and to make it even more amazing, they were all girls. Austin, Sawyer, and Billy. Those three were unstoppable little cousin crew. They moved into our neighborhood, and just before this tragedy, we started kindergarten together. We didn't think that kindergarten knew what they had coming for them. Oh, the fun we had on that adventure. That adventure didn't last long. Since the tragedy was just not the same, they lost a part of them, especially Sawyer. It's not about excitement and adventure anymore. It's now about surviving. Surviving the day, the big feelings, the aftermath. That normal childhood, sisterhood bond was taken from them. My girls spent that first year crying themselves to sleep at night. My husband and I were at a loss for how to console them or help them understand and make sense of it. My teenager immediately started struggling in school and disconnecting. It had a ripple effect on our whole family. And I'm also at a loss for the struggle these kids must be facing after surviving such a traumatizing event. This summer we took vacation in the mountains, and I walked up to a river. I had raging rapids, and I couldn't control my distress. Flashing back to that night and thinking of the frigid, cold winter water they slipped into. If I could be affected by that water. And the memory, it did not shock me that Sawyer has so much stress and even panic attacks about driving while it's raining, and how she still worries whether she is safe with people. I'm mentioning Sawyer a lot today, not because Lakin isn't suffering too. She certainly is. But because Sawyer was Austin's twin, and if you've ever known twins, you know their bond is something fierce. And Sawyer, despite being 5 when his heaven has struggled hard. And she's still struggling, and it's more open and raw and obvious. And I don't want anyone to ever discredit the child's grief, because I've seen it firsthand, and it's real. I've heard comments that Lacey and Daniel lost their children, and they're suffering. I don't deny their suffering. And there is no amount of enough that can fix this. But a woman also lost a child. She has had that same suffering. And she didn't do it. So I questioned, how could their consequence be equal? There needs to be accountability. Because unfortunately, this is not the first time my niece's safety has been questioned in the hands of their entire family. This is not the first conversation about or choices made with these children. And someone needs to be the voice for the kids. Please don't ignore that there were 2 families affected. There was another innocent mom involved who didn't try to do anything with her kids, let alone anyone else's. She didn't even give permission for this activity. But she was still experiencing all the same suffering. I feel our family has been overlooked in this narrative. It's out there. I don't want Austin to be a side note in this tragedy because she was everything to us. Thank you for letting me share a small glimpse of how this has affected our family. No outcome of this sentencing will bring peace to us. Only Jesus will bring us that. Thank goodness our family is Jesus strong.
Mr. Seuss?
Yeah, at this time, Judge, I'd like to call Commander Dennis Newman for some brief testimony.
Okay. Commander, if you can make your way down to the witness stand. Again, watch all our cords. I think Kaylin has them mostly protected, but I still don't want to do it. So go ahead and have a seat. I'm just going to let Mr. Seuss ask questions without formally swearing in.
May I proceed, Judge?
Yes.
Please state your name, occupation, and range.
My name's Dennis Newman. I'm a major in the Gila County Sheriff's Office. My current assignment is the Detention Facilities Commander.
And were you employed with the Gila County Sheriff's Office on November 29th of 2019?
Yes, sir, I was.
And what was your rank and assignment at that time?
At that time, I was assigned to the Payson District as a patrol sergeant. Other hat that I wore that particular day was the county coordinator for search and rescue.
And did you receive word of a 911 call regarding a vehicle trapped in the floodwaters on the Barrex crossing at Tonto Creek?
Yes, sir, I did.
And how long did it take you to respond to that location?
Information started coming in a little bit after 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I think around 4:11. I was up in Payson, and driving time from Payson down to Barrex crossing was probably 20 minutes.
So when you arrived there, were you able to find the approximate location of where this occurred?
Yes, sir.
And by the time you arrived, had it started getting dark yet?
That particular time of the year, you're 21 days out from the winter solstice, which is the longest period of darkness during the year. So it was getting dark when I left Payson, and it was dark when I arrived.
And did you proceed to the creek via the Barrex crossing from the highway there?
Yes, sir.
Tonto Basin?
From Highway 188, I came down and then made the turn onto the Barrex crossing. Short distance down, I was at the creek.
And were you there at that time in your capacity as coordinator for search and rescue?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Could you tell me what the conditions were like in the creek at that time?
When I arrived, we were where we had stopped was very close to the water. You could hear the water roaring. It was dark. Without any type of aid from a light or something, you really couldn't see the other side of the creek. When I got there and got briefed by Lieutenant Scott and started looking around, I was able to see lights on the other side of the creek. And that distance, my estimation, was 100 yards, if not more. But again, you could see and hear the water. You could see the wave trains in the water because it was running. I had checked later that evening. And I think it was flowing at about 2,000 cubic feet per second, which is very fast.
And you documented that in your report, correct?
I did.
Now, a short time later, you put in your report that Fox 1 from Maricopa County helicopter had responded to the scene.
Yes, sir.
Could you tell us why helicopters had to be called in?
On the way down, listening to what I was getting over the police radio and needing to know what resources I need to deploy and that they would be coming from a fair distance, I needed to start making decisions on who I needed down there. A couple of my first phone calls were to the Arizona Department of Public Safety for their helicopter. I didn't know who I was going to get, actually, so I started calling everybody that would answer their phone. So I called Arizona Department of Public Safety, asked for a helicopter to come up to start an air search because of what we had. I also called Maricopa County. They have a helicopter, which theirs is Fox 1. And so I knew that I had 2 helicopters en route, as well as making the phone call to my search and rescue group requesting swift water people and ground support people.
Now, had you determined fairly early on after arriving out there that there were some subjects stranded out on a little island in the middle of the river?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, and were measures taken to rescue those people?
When I got there and we learned how many people that we had and who we had accounted for and who we didn't have accounted for, Fox 1 was the first one to come overhead. Because of their radio system, we were having issues being able to talk to them and direct them to where we needed them. They flew overhead. They had their searchlight going. How those guys were able to see people on that island, I don't know, but they took it upon themselves to land and rescue, I believe it was Daniel, Ellie, Lakin, Sawyer, and one more that were on there, and they were able to land and pick them up and get them over to shore.
Were there no other means to attempt that rescue at that time?
At that time, that was the fastest way. At where they were in relation to the shore on either side, I couldn't see on the other side how close that island was to the east side, the far side. It's what, in swift water terms, they would refer to as river left. As the water goes downstream, you have river left and river right, so you don't have to worry about a declination of, well, is this the north side or the south side or the east or the west? So I couldn't see on the other side, so I don't know how far it was from the island to river left. So I was only able to see, but yeah, that was the fastest, most expedient way to handle it, and in retrospect, it was absolutely the safest way.
And did you determine shortly thereafter that there was still a couple of children, that there were some children missing that had not been accounted for?
Yes, sir.
And were there any measures taken to put people from your team into the water?
What we started off with, first off, because we really didn't have anyone located, once we had located Daniel and the 4 kids that he was with, we knew where Lacey was. She had swam out on the far side and knew that we were missing 3 small children. We started what we call a hasty search. That is trying to deploy people along the shoreline to start looking to see what they're able to locate. I did not ask any of my people to go into the water because, for one, it's dark. The water's flowing very fast. There's a lot of down trees and things that you can't see. Even in calm water, that it's risky, even during the day. So in order for me to put people, my folks, my volunteers into the water, we need to have somebody identified that we can actually go rescue. So we started a hasty search. We started along our side of the river, the creek, along the bank, trying
But you
to...
stayed on the land.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, was it safe at that time to cross the creek?
No, sure.
And we're talking about people that are trained to rescue people in dangerous conditions such as this.
Yes, sir, that's
It was too
correct.
dangerous for them to.
Yes, sir.
And you also documented in your report that for the first few days of the operation, getting searchers safely across the creek could only be accomplished by a helicopter. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Those are all the questions I have.
Ms. Mahady, while the major is here, would you like to ask any questions?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
No questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes. Because I want to also refer, he was unavailable to come today, but another first responder on the scene there at about that time was Chief Holt, Chief of the Tonto Basin Fire Department. And he gave a statement to Detective Balch of the Sheriff's Department, and his description of the scene when he arrived was as follows. The water was very fast, appeared to be very deep, since there was nearly a whole truck invisible underneath it, and it was very muddy, and the rapids were moving. It was impossible to enter safely. Before I begin my PowerPoint presentation, it's my understanding there is one more victim representative.
Okay. And, we need to have one of my bailiffs get the person over there.
They're coming out from that way.
That she's in the jury room.
Okay.
He's gonna bring her in.
So you can either use that podium or at the podium, which would you prefer?
I don't have a preference. What do you prefer?
It's no difference. Everyone else has used the podium. If you want to be like everyone else, or you can.
Yeah, my name is Lauren Johnston. I'm the mother. Almost I can do this. I'm the mother of Austin, Sawyer, and Lincoln. I'm here today to speak for myself and for my girls, living and no longer with us. It was November 29th, 2019. I had the most wonderful Thanksgiving with my girls the day prior. I had just traveled across the country for a short trip while the girls were having their time with Dad for Thanksgiving. I received a dreaded phone call a short few hours after touching down at the airport. He was crying. I knew it wasn't good. Nothing he had said made any sense. All I could hear was, "They are all gone. They are in the water and I can't find them." For what seemed like an eternity, I laid on the floor in agony, assuming that all of my children were dead. I had no details. I was desperate sheriff's department to get more information, but I was told that they were doing everything they could to find my children. The horror began to sink in even deeper. This was really happening, and there was absolutely nothing I could do to stop it or to help. I just had to sit and wait. I dry heaved for hours. I cried until there were no more tears to cry. I was a lifeless ball of mush on the floor and couldn't function. I finally got a call that Sawyer and Lincoln had been found, and aside from hypothermia, they were okay. By the grace of God, they somehow survived that water. Now began the sibling thoughts of Austin struggling in freezing cold water, alone and drowning. Is she alive? Laying somewhere on the side of the water, freezing? Are her lungs already full of water? Was she scared? Did she think she was going to die? Was she wondering where her mom and dad were and why they hadn't saved her yet? Is she hurting? None of this shut off. These thoughts were on repeat. I spoke to Lacey and Sawyer on FaceTime. In the emergency room, they were sent there after being rescued. It was one of the most terrifying things to see. They were glazed over, empty and broken. Fast forward to the next day, I had just landed back in Arizona, and I got word that her body was found. She was gone. A sense of peace came over me, knowing that she was not suffering. But the unknown horror was only just beginning. Little did I know, navigating life after losing a child wasn't actually the hard part for me. Austin, Colby, and Willa are not the ones suffering. The hard part is seeing your surviving children struggling with every aspect of life for the foreseeable future. Hearing their accounts of this traumatic event day after day and desperately searching for the right words to say. Mom, why did this happen? Mommy, was this someone's fault? Mommy, my body was so cold. I couldn't even swim because the water was so freezing. Mommy, it was my fault. I had her hand, and the water was too strong, and she got ripped away from me. This is the horror. This is what nightmares are made of for a parent. On November 29th, I was robbed of my ability to protect my children. Another set of parents made decisions for my children, and their decisions led to the loss of life and lifelong repercussions for so many people. My whole entire world as I knew it was ripped from me that day. A piece of my being, of my soul, and my heart is gone. Her childhood, graduations, weddings, children of her own, my peace and security are gone. Lakin and Sawyer's peace and security and their ability to trust is gone. A mind that was free of trauma from me and my girls is now gone. My opportunity to raise up a child that I grew inside my body and loved unconditionally is gone. I also have lost the ability to have restful sleep. And lastly, my ability to walk through a day without thinking of my daughter dying in freezing cold water and bashing her head into a rock is gone. Losing a child is hard enough, but the never-ending fears, anxiety, and PTSD we deal with over in our home is next-level parenting. I cannot tell you how trying some days are when I am giving my everything as a mama, and it still doesn't feel like enough. Oftentimes, I want to throw in the towel and give up, but I can't because my girls have endured a trauma that most adults could never even imagine. I would love to see my girls as confident as they were before any of this happened, but I can't because their trust in others has changed dramatically. They no longer trust many members of their own family and want to avoid their presence. Despite continued trauma counseling that we started in week 1, we still have trouble sleeping, going to school, work, and coping with the loss of our sweet girl. Some nights I'm woken up 5 times or more because Sawyer can't shut off her big feelings, and her night terrors visit her regularly. It is truly disturbing to know the details of what goes on in their minds. I could go on for hours, but I think you get the idea. It's really unfortunate that when we got here today, I kind of felt like I was showing up to a parade or a football game. It doesn't matter how many yellow signs you hold up. It doesn't matter how many cheerleaders you have, and it definitely doesn't matter how strong you are. If you want to do the right thing from this point forward, humility is what matters. Recognizing that you are not invincible is what matters. Acknowledging how fragile life is and how quickly bad choices can take all of life away. That is what is important. Our children need parents with humility and the willingness to admit our inadequacies. They need mentally healthy parents, not strong, egotistical parents who think they can defy the laws of physics. Parents who can make good choices on their behalf, even when life sucks really bad. I can only imagine how hard daily life is for Daniel and Lacey. They have lost 2 children of their own, and they carry the weight of this horrible decision on their shoulders every day. I hope that if nothing else comes from this avoidable tragedy, that Daniel and Lacey will never stop seeking guidance, professional guidance. Being a mom and dad isn't easy for anyone, let alone someone who has been through all of this. Dallin and Ellie deserve 2 healthy parents who can advocate for them and support them emotionally. I want Daniel and Lacey to know that I do forgive you. I will never understand, but I forgive you for taking my daughter from me and our family. She is missed by myself, her twin sister Sawyer, Lakin, all of her siblings, her stepdad, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, friends. I still care about your family, and I want what is best for your children. I hope what's best for them is still you. And I hope you fight for them, whatever that fight may look like. It's worth it for the well-being of your children. Your Honor, I would ask that you would show mercy on Daniel today. I don't know what that mercy looks like, and I'm forever grateful that it isn't my decision. But the only 2 people on this planet that need help more than Daniel and Lacey are Dallin and Nellie. From a broken and grieving mom with suffering children. I would ask that you please show him grace. Thank you for your time.
Well, Judge, that was a very powerful statement. And I think that it takes a very big person to trust the defendants and forgive them. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that demonstrates what kind of a person she is. But we all now have a job to do. And you probably have the toughest job of all today, Judge, because you have to make a very tough decision. And what I am going to attempt to do during my time up here is to convince the court to base its decision, whatever it might be, on the facts. The actual facts. Not what people perceive them to be, not what people wish them to be, and certainly not what people who engage in social media have broadcast them to be, because it's all wrong. It's all inaccurate. And I actually welcome the opportunity for this hearing to once and for all to present the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as to how and why these poor children had to die that day. What nobody seems to want to acknowledge or recognize in this case is the reason. The reason these children died. Nobody wants to talk about that. And Judge, I know the defendants have pled guilty, so I'm not going to retry the case, but I think it's very important for you to be exposed to the evidence that I'm going to present and the facts that I'm going to present. Because the sentencing statutes say, specifically 13701D, that the nature and circumstances of the crime are relevant to your determination. So I will be as brief as I can, but I very carefully constructed a presentation that I feel is efficient but effective. It is really unfortunate for the public good. I mean, obviously, this is a very high-profile case. The media has been covering this. It's all the talk on social media. And it's really unfortunate the misinformation that has gone around, which started with criticism of the county attorney in charging this case. And that's fine. He's an elected official. He can take criticism so long as it's based on the facts. And there's been nothing but facts that have been portrayed in the public. There have been politicians pontificating about this case, standing on their soapboxes and asking, why don't we have a bridge out there? This actually even led to legislation and funding for a bridge, with this case being used as a pedestal for that legislation. Daniel Rawlings even appeared at a public forum that discussed the building of a bridge, when the reality is that this case has absolutely nothing to do with a bridge. That's what makes this crime so senseless. To their credit, defense counsel has never even mentioned the lack of a bridge during the entire course of this criminal litigation, because having recognized what the actual facts are, they know that it's completely irrelevant. So bottom line, whether there was a bridge at that creek or not on November 29th of 2019, we would still have 3 dead kids. That is what is most unfortunate about this case. Recently, and I won't name names because it's not necessary, but the wife of a politician, a state politician, intervened in this case. Sincerely and appropriately, but I found it astonishing that when I had a discussion with her about this case recently, over the holidays, that despite all the public statements that have been made, she did not even know after 2 years why this happened. And I find that astonishing. So I welcome the opportunity to be able to finally, once and for all, make this presentation to the court so that you, Judge, can make a very informed decision. I would also point out that even people involved in this case, I suppose we would expect from defense counsel that in their sentencing memorandums that they're not going to put the reason why this happened. I guess that's to be expected. We're supposed to be preparing you, Judge, to make a decision. But what we have are incomplete, vague statements like a decision was made to try and cross the creek again. Even the adult probation department, who I think has failed you in this regard, Judge, failing to present to you the full set of facts that I believe are relevant in your determination as to whether to send Daniel Rawlings to prison. Even the pre-sentence writer doesn't say the reason why this happened. Just that there was a statement made by a child. So, what I found during the course of prosecuting this case is when people actually learn the facts, the actual facts, their perception of this case changes entirely. And I know you were exposed to some of the facts at the pretrial motions hearings we had, Judge, that helped lead to a resolution of this case. But there's more. So, with that, we could start the PowerPoint. First, Judge, what I'm going to do, this is probably the most compelling 18 minutes of this entire case. And this is Lacey Rawlings' statement to Detective Hensley the following morning about what happened the previous evening. So, with that.
Let's make sure there's, I just want to make sure you use the external speakers. I don't know if we need to move the microphone you have so that it will pick up for our folks who are hearing on the screen.
So, let's start from when you guys arrived here, you and Daniel. Who was with you when you initially came out? When did you guys come out here?
We came out on Wednesday. We drove our motorhome. I drove our car. We came out on Wednesday.
On Wednesday? About what time? Do you mind? What time did you come out on Wednesday?
We got here about 5, maybe.
Okay, so you drove the motorhome. And
I drove my car. He drove the motorhome.
okay, so when you guys came out here, you came out here from where?
And we live in Chilton.
Okay. Did you come down the 60 or the 260? By the dealer? Okay. Have you been out here before?
Yeah.
And this residence belongs to whom?
My in-laws.
And is it the building insured? Okay, so you guys have been out here before? Which way did you guys come across to get here? Like, which crossing did you take?
Pumpkin Center.
Pumpkin Center crossing? When you guys at Pumpkin Center crossing, what did you see? What did you see there? What did it look like before you guys crossed?
No.
Was the barricades up?
No. No, I'm okay.
Okay. Was it water in the creek?
Yeah, there was water.
How was it driving across?
I never thought twice about it.
Okay. When you drove across, because you were in the car, right? You said you drove the car.
I drove my car.
Where was the water? Did you notice where the water came up to when you drove across?
Wasn't very high at all.
Okay, and that was on Wednesday?
Yeah.
About 5?
Yeah, 4:30-ish time, yeah.
So, what did you do? What did you guys do on Wednesday?
Nothing. We just got here and come up here.
Okay. And then Thursday was Thanksgiving. You all stayed here. Did you all stay here, or did you leave the house between Wednesday and Thursday? Stayed here. Okay, so now let's go ahead and fast forward to Friday. Friday when you all were here, the whole family was here because Jay showed up with his 3 children, right? And that's Sawyer, Lincoln, and Austin. What time did they get here?
I don't know, it was morning. I slept in that morning, actually. When I got up and I slept in the kids.
Okay. And you guys decided to go take a drive
Well, it was raining and we had heated up the jacuzzi, so we were gonna go get a canopy to put over the jacuzzi so we could sit in the jacuzzi and not get wet.
Okay.
And at that point, we'd already moved the vehicles, and Joe had gone across a couple times and had made it great.
And that's which crossing was
The pumpkin center.
that? Mm-hmm.
Now, who's Joe?
Joe's the truck we were driving, the big one.
Oh, that's what you call the truck. Joe's.
It's called the G.I. Joe.
Okay. All right, I see now. Joe. So, about what time did you guys decide to go? And who was with you?
Me and Daniel and the 7 kids.
Okay. About what time was this?
I honestly don't recall.
Okay.
I don't remember. I remember heating up the thing, and then he was like, well, do you want to run and see? And all the kids wanted to go, and he's like, take them all games because it's raining. So we went and got 4 games, got all the kids candy.
Okay. Now, when you went across the second time, you went at Pumpkin Center.
We did.
Now, and did you see the barricades at that time?
Yeah,
Okay. How was it going across there?
fine.
Okay.
No problem, actually. We had a lot of people honking and waving because it was
You said you didn't have any problem at all getting across that time?
none at all, which is why the kids were having so much fun. They said, Dad, let's do it again. Dad,
And they were they in the back of the vehicle?
No, they were in the
In the cab?
Okay. How many times had you all crossed that day?
We've gone, so personally, I had only gone to one time with him. We went across to the store and then we came back. And they had gone earlier though because they took that morning when they saw that the water was getting up, they took all the vehicles across and then used Joe because they didn't think it was safe for the vehicle, so they used Joe.
Who's they?
My husband and his dad.
Okay.
So they were like, hey, and they told Jay, you park up there, we'll come pick you up in Joe.
Okay.
We don't want you driving across. So that was the plan. And like I said, we just went across, no problem. It was easy peasy, came back, no problem, easy peasy. And we turned up here to go down this road, and my kids, especially my favorite one, said, Dad, please, let's just go one more time. It's so fun.
So when you guys went, this last time you went and picked up the candy, went to the store, got some candy and stuff. How long were you gone, do you think? Okay. Tell me what happened after that, because you took a different way home, right?
No, we came back this way home and we turned up this road and passed this road, and that's when my 12-year-old said, Dad, please, can you do it again, please? It was so fun.
But that's my question, when you went again, which way did you guys try to come back?
So then we went across Pumpkin Center, back across Pumpkin Center.
Okay.
And when we came back across Pumpkin Center, again, no problems. We had people honking and waving, there were cars sitting out videotaping. I mean, no problem. It was like when I drive my car across it. No issues, no slip, no nothing. And so that's when he pulled in on this road, and my 12-year-old's, Dad, please, I really do want to do it. He's really into big trucks. He's like, I really want to do the fans again, because it has, if you're in this much water, you turn on the fans and it helps. And yeah, I really want to do the fan again. Dad, please, Dad, please. And he's like, do you care? And I was like, I don't care. The kids are having fun. The whole one loved it. And so that's when he just passed this road and kept going. And that's when he tried to go across that road.
The one at Barnes.
Okay, so you weren't coming from 188 across Barracks, you guys were going across towards 188.
I don't know. This road right here, what's this road? I don't remember.
Okay, you know that?
So when you guys came, you came from Pumpkin Center Crossing?
We came from Pumpkin Center Crossing,
Yeah.
and then we turn up here on Picture Mountain Road, we get up here. He just passed Picture Mountain and said, we'll go down and cross down there.
I see, so you basically, instead of, when you went out Pumpkin Center Crossing, you went to the store, which store did you go to?
We went to both. We went to first, we went to True Value, and then they didn't have any board games, so we ended up getting the canopy there.
Yes.
They didn't have any board games, so we went to Dollar General, and that's where we let the kids get, I got like 6 or 7 board games, and they all got to pick candy.
So the Dollar General is on 188, okay?
Came all the way back up, crossed at Pumpkin Center.
Crossed at Pumpkin Center.
And like I said, that's when we had people video us cheering, we were doing so great. So So then peasing them and squeezing them, nothing even remotely scary at all.
So you came home?
No, we came like we're going home, and this is when the kids start asking, Dad, please, just do it one more time, just squeeze Dad, please. Instead of turning around and going back to Pumpkin Center.
He went down Ewing Trail to Bar X.
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys crossed at Bar X from Ewing Trail. That's
This only road is this road, and then we went that
So
way.
then what happened? When you guys were crossing, start from there, so tell me everything that happened.
We started crossing, and he goes, the water's a little bit higher, opens up the door, water's a little bit higher, and then he goes, yeah, I think it's too deep, and he goes to put it in reverse. And so then he's forward, reverse, just trying to get some movement, and couldn't get it to move. And then I don't know if it started moving or if we started sliding, but it started going forward, and it went real fast. And so we didn't even have time. Is that he's, we should have got him out on that, we should have thrown him on that. We didn't have time. We thought we were moving, we thought it was fine, and then all of a sudden, no time. Cab full, everyone out through the window.
Cab full of water? Okay.
Which window did he go out?
Well, so he says to me, babe, get the kids out, get them on the roof. And so I started to roll down my window. Well, that was the stupidest thing to do, because then the water just pushed, and he already had his window down, and I should have just started having and hand the kids up and not rolled my window down, because when I rolled my window down, then no one could stay inside. But that, as soon as my window went down, it just, I tried to come up and grab kids, and there was no staying in that car once that window went down. Everyone was out.
Okay. So when you rolled down the window and the water started rushing in, what do you remember next?
I hit someone under the water, and I grabbed whoever it was and just tried to pull them out the window with me, and I came up with them, and when I came up, it was my 9-year-old.
Okay.
And so I grabbed onto her, and I said, you hold on to that truck. And so I tried to help her hold on, and I was already going. And so I got to the closest shoreline, or whatever that little island was, and I saw my 10-year-old. I didn't see my husband, but I knew he was out, because I knew he went out before me the way the gush went. So I knew he was out before me, and I saw my baby that was twins. And I saw my husband trying to figure out, and I saw my 10-year-old trying to figure out how to get him.
And your 10-year-old's name is?
Well,
Colby is here.
Colby's my baby, and I saw him off in the distance. And I saw my 11-year-old son standing on the shore trying to figure out how to get him. And then my 9-year-old, I keep calling her 10-year-old because her birthday's on next week, so she's almost close. But she's my 9-year-old's okay. Older son, older. She sees, and she runs over and she grabs it, and that's his jacket ripped. And so I saw that happen, and I was standing there, and I was trying to figure out who's where, trying to count. And then I saw Sawyer. So I jumped back in the water, and I got her, and I threw her, and my 11-year-old son comes up, and Mom, I got her. I got her up on shore. And then off in the distance, I saw Austin. And she was quite a bit further off of the path that everyone else had kind of floated out. She was quite a bit over here. So I swam out to her as hard as I could, and got to her and grabbed her. And I started talking to her. And then I could see that we'd passed the island that everyone else was at. But I saw some trees. So I thought I'd just get up on those trees with it. And as soon as I went to reach up and get those trees, a rock just hit me, and
That's what you got.
I got bruises, and
Okay.
a rock just hit me, and I was black. After that, I have no blank. And I remember thinking, something's on top of me, I can't come up. I don't think I'm going to get air. I kind of remember thinking, this is it. But then I remember thinking, my water was so strong that it was drowning. I couldn't find it. And I saw some trees. And it said, give everything you have to those trees. And I did. And I got it with 1 foot. And it just hung there until I could get some strength. And then I got myself up on the tree. And then I have my Apple Watch, and they would call me and say, who do you have? And I said,
When did you last see Austin?
right before the rock. I was lifting her. I thought she was, I thought when you said you didn't have her, I was like, I got her up on those trees. I thought I got her up on the trees. I never saw Willa. I never saw Lincoln.
You didn't see Willa when you saw Colby. You saw Austin, you never saw Willa. You don't know when she got out of the
I
train.
didn't see Willa or Lincoln.
Okay.
So when he said he had Lincoln, that was news because I had never seen Lincoln. So I didn't see, like I said, I saw my two older ones. I saw Austin Sawyer and I saw Colby. But I never saw Willa or Lincoln.
And your babies are Willa and Colby, and Austin belongs to Shay. So when you got up on the train and you talked to Daniel, what he told you he had? He asked, who did you have?
He asked who I had and I said I have him.
What happened after that?
He's uncontrollably crying. And I said, who's Lacey? And I couldn't, but I heard him say Colby Willa. And that's the only two that I knew were missing at that point. So I still was kind of thinking that I had Austin up on the street.
Okay.
I still kind of was thinking she was there and that he just couldn't see her because it was a little bit behind where he was. And then I got a call from Jay, who answered it, and he told me, he's like, Lacey, don't try to jump, you stay on those ropes, you stay on those trees until someone gets in. And so I did. I stayed there until Jay came walking out and he had a rope, and he threw me a rope, and I jumped in and it took me again, but I was able to hold on until I could swim off the shore, and then I got up. Jay, they pulled me, I tried to get off, but I thought about him. And he said I couldn't go with him, he was going to go look at him, he said I had to go back. So he made me walk back. So
Jay's your brother-in-law.
And then he walked the shore to a cross looking for the others. And what happened after you walked back? Is that when you ran into the rescuers?
as Jay said, he said, Lacey, you can't go. He's like, you've been, what, 200 got get out of those clothes. He's like, you're going to die if you don't get out of those clothes. He said, you can't go with me. And I said, Jay, please. And he handed me off to some lady, and I had no idea who she was, but she grabbed me and she said, oh, you're coming this way. And then she handed me off to the lady, and I had no shoes at that point. I think they both got lost, and so I just was getting handed off after handed off until I saw my mother-in-law in her Jeep.
Okay.
And so then I just got in there and straight down and got a blanket over me.
I actually have 3 more questions I have to ask you. The first one is, because you went a different route this time, you went Barras. Did you guys see that, the sign there? There.
Mr. Seuss, we're going to need to take a break sometime this morning. I'm thinking now may be the best time, that way I don't have to interrupt you. It is now 11:15. We're planning on taking a 10-minute recess. We're planning on coming back at 11:25, and then Mr. Seuss, at that point, I can get you ready for your PowerPoints.
That's the start of it.
Yes, it is. Okay.